Alright, welcome to episode 105, which is part 2 of World War 4. That's crazy that this world is already in World War 4. You know, it makes you glad that you don't live in this world, and you live in the real world, where maybe people just get angry at each other, but they don't go to war like this. So, in the last episode, we saw the Franco Union absolutely obliterate Italy, pushing through their northwestern territory. Germany's actually doing pretty well again, whilst Romania collapsed because of course they did. Ukraine is currently getting invaded by Caucasia. The Middle East is just fighting itself, and Indochina has made the world in its area pink, just really, really pink haze. And America got invaded, which they're really not doing that well about. They didn't think they get invaded, and they didn't think they get nuked by the freaking New England country, who apparently has nukes now. They move in towards, whatever this is, Cherokee Bay. I don't remember. And the New England country manages to keep connecting up with this territory as they even naively cross over into here until America says, no, we're definitely not going to allow that, and they push back against this country, moving into this northwestern territory. However, New England is a top 20 power country in the world, and Texas is, they're alright. They were pretty strong before, and they're not super strong anymore, but they're still kind of there, and they're doing a pretty good job invading America. So, good job, Texas. Well done. But yeah, the New England country is doing pretty well, as they have quite an advanced military and lots of aid from Germany back when Germany was good. Although they're doing pretty good here, they're actually doing pretty impressively. The Caucasian forces are going to continue to move into Ukraine, now pushing over into eastern Ukrainian territory, taking all four of these major cities. The Ukrainian troops on their own aren't super well equipped or very powerful, and they lose the entire Crimean Peninsula in not too long. After this, we see the entry of the Polish over here into western Ukraine as they take over a few more Ukrainian major cities, and Ukraine is just getting absolutely folded because they're just so screwed. Bulgarian troops are going to continue to move eastwards now as they push into Ukrainian territory, also taking over these southern areas of Ukraine, these coastal territories, and everyone is finally moving towards the Ukrainian capital city, which is maybe somewhere near Kiev, but I don't really know. Anyway, there's Ukraine. Looks very sad. Down here to the Middle East then, the country after country is still having quite a few successes over here as they help to push the Franco Union out of Italy. I don't even say Franco Union anymore, because I can't. Apparently. But the Koreans are managing to retake one major city in their occupied zone. And yeah, the front lines down here in Mesopotamia look weird. They look really weird. But there you go, that is the Middle East for you at the moment. But we need to head over here to Africa because one country has decided to join the war finally, and it's Morocco, the 11th strongest country in the entire world. They're a pretty important regional power, and they want to free the African religion people from Andalusian rules. They take over 3 major cities in the south and push in across this major southern area. Most Andalusian troops are fighting over here in Italy. Speaking of fighting in Italy, it's going well. They've gone over to the Adriatic Sea now, and they've taken the city of Venice, so the war isn't going well if you're Italian. How the Italians will have more successes in the south as they use the nationalism they've acquired from being a country to help their people to push back against their Franco invaders. Over here in eastern Germany, they are surviving so much better than everyone else predicted, because eastern Germany is not like a super formidable country, but they're doing pretty well. And they're somehow still holding on, mostly due to the Polish troops. Over here in Ukraine, they have finally capitulated. It didn't actually take that long, it's just, they exist on this map for way too long. Like 3 episodes. Anyway, back over here to China. We see Indochina, which is not China, it's Indonesian China. That's definitely what they mean. They take over some more territory from the Bengali country. However, finally, the full Loaded troops have arrived, or at least the full ones, the ones they're sending, and they are managing to push back even more against the Indo-Chinese country through some absolutely barren Tibetan territory, as they manage to finally connect up with the border of the Green country, or the invasion into the Green country. Speaking of tiny Chinese countries, however, this one is basically on their last legs. They're going to die at some point in the future, but some countries in China don't want to let China die, and one of those countries is the purple one right here, as they declare war on Korea and try to start their invasion into the Korean country. Korea was not expecting to get invaded today, so they don't have a huge number of defenses on the border of this random purple country just out here in China. So when a couple of other Chinese countries, including this yellow one over here, when they start to get involved, so we see this one push into this peninsula, and we see the orange one also join the war and push up into the peninsula from the south. The Koreans like, what the hell is going on? And then the red one gets involved, and it's just like, what? Why am I the one who's getting jumped by countries? I'm meant to be the one doing that. However, Korea is the second most powerful country in the entire world. So after all these invasions occur, what they do is they just send their military towards these countries, and mysteriously, all their invasions get absolutely crushed. So these countries completely just get destroyed really quickly. Korean troops move up and take the capital, the yellow one, and from here they're going to not stop moving as they start to invade into the purple country, and they move towards the capital city of the old capital city of China, really, which is pretty important to the Chinese people. They've taken a lot of the major cities on the border of this country. They also start to invade into the orange Chinese country, and they move towards their capital city. And then over here in the red country, which is such a random one and such an empty one as well, they start to move towards their capital area, but very slowly because it's a very big country. So there we go. Korea is now actually fighting on active front lines, which is pretty cool. And it's going to mean the front line in Indochina is harder to hold due to the fact that Korea actually has to fight against a lot of really populated countries. So the Indochinese are going to lose some land down here in Bengal, which doesn't mean too much because it's not very important land. But they do manage to retake one major city and two. You should include the one in the south, which I'm going to include because it is one that needs to be included. What am I saying? Anyway, down here to Australia, we see another country join the war, and it's going to be the Western Australian country, as they declare war on this guy. This guy being Mr. whatever he's called. What am I even saying anymore? Oh, New South Wales. I'm talking really fast, and my brain can't really keep up, so that's kind of why. Now the Western Australians have 8 nuclear bombs, one up here and one down there. 7 down there, I mean. So they're going to start dropping those all over New South Wales territory. So they drop 2 over here. Actually, these are really big nukes by this point. So they're going to drop 1 in the capital, 1 over there. And let's do 1 in probably quite an important area of Australia. So they're currently down to 5 nuclear bombs. However, the New South Wales country is going to, of course, take the initiative to just nuke their western neighbour, who they've grown to really not like recently, due to the fact that they fought against each other like 20 years ago in World War III, after having some really bad relations back then. And now they're fighting each other again, but over ideological differences. So yeah, things aren't great over here in Australia. But with the Western Australians joining the war, they kind of surprised their neighbour over here in Eastern Australia, and they're going to get the jump on them. Also, these guys got nuked, so they kind of didn't want to get nuked today. They really thought that wouldn't happen in this war to them, but Western Australian troops move across the southern border down here, taking one major city, and they also move into the far more populated, apparently, northern border, taking over one of these major cities, and then another one, and then another one, and then another one, but it's not really that major, because it's in a desert. Another country will join the war, and this time it's East Papua New Guinea country, and they invade towards West Papua, a country who they've been to war with like 1 billion times now. They manage to take one major city, and they push towards the capital city in this area, but don't quite take it. They're very good at invading this country because they've done it, as I said before, like 1 billion times now, despite it being the island of Papua New Guinea, where they shouldn't have this many wars in Papua New Guinea, but somehow here in history written too, we've managed to achieve that. Australia, or Western Australia, will begin their invasion of some of these islands, taking over all the other ones before getting to the big Papua New Guinea one. So that's pretty scary. Indochina is going to start sending their navy out towards Western Australia, but it's unlikely to really do anything. So that's annoying. Over here in China, we see the joining of the blue country into the war, which is maybe a bit of a silly idea to join the war, but you know what? They wanted to try and take over the island of Taiwan, or at least pester the Indo-Chinese, but they don't really do it either. They pester them and they annoy them, sure, but actually what they do is lose their capital city instead, so that kind of sucks. They are getting invaded quicker than the other Chinese country though, so that's pretty impressive. And the Indo-Chinese are doing a good job and moving to the green country up here, and gradually they're managing to take control over China. So in the peace treaty, they could definitely get a load of Chinese stuff, which would make them kind of scary. Anyway, the invasion into Bengal is continuing once again. If they push through this, they can invade into the Gangetic country proper, which would kind of scare some people. So maybe that's the plan. Anyway, the Italians, due to the joining of the Moroccan country, are going to see some more success. The Moroccans have managed to continue to push through the southern areas of this nation and over to the capital city of Andalusia, but not quite taking it. Franco forces have to withdraw from the very tricky to hold front line over here in the Adriatic region, and this is going to free up some Italian forces to now start a counter invasion of the German country. There's now a whole load of Eastern European forces that aren't fighting anyone, including Caucasian, Hungarian, Bulgarian, and Polish forces, and they're going to all slam themselves straight into the border of Eastern Germany, a country who wasn't even part of their alliance, but is now getting liberated by them, so that's cool. The Germans are pushed back to the outskirts of all the major cities they're holding, but they do manage to keep control over the capital city, and the war will continue in this territory. The Friendly Union is going to help to push back Moroccan invasion into the Andalusian ally of theirs, but yeah, it's not going great for those guys. Back over here to China, because this is quite an important front line at this point in the war. The Tibetan it's not just Tibetans, by the way, on this front, but I might say it is. They're doing a pretty good job at invading into this area, and they even start to retake some territory from the Green Country. Indochina is basically fighting this all on their own, and that's not a good way to fight a war. But they're still doing kind of alright. Anyway, over here to Korea, they're fighting the war on their own pretty well, because all these countries are poor and weak. But they managed to take over the capital of the Purple Country and load the other major cities in this area. The Orange Country is going to lose their capital city, which sucks for them, because you kind of want to keep that. And then the Red Country will actually manage to retake some land, because nobody cares about the Red Country. They're kind of irrelevant. But it does help to retake land from the Purple team, who manages to spearhead back towards their capital city. And really, Korea just has to deal with a lot of front lines in this war, and that's kind of taxing on them. So that's why they're being annoyed by that. The Blue Country has managed to retake their own capital city from the Indo-Chinese, which helps, but not too much. And over here in Australia, the New South Wales country has managed to push back all Western Australian invasions into their territory in the south, at least, and they begin their own invasion into the New South Wales south, Western Australian south. There we go. And taking over a huge chunk of territory like this, and continue to move in towards this major city down here, and kind of both of those two. So that's cool. Anyway, up here in Western Australia and the Queensland area, or wherever this is, I think it's Queensland. Yeah. The West Australians are having more success in this territory. They're kind of just fighting better up here in the north, surprisingly, and it might be due to the fact that West Papua isn't doing anything. But also, even if West Papua wasn't being absolutely obliterated at this point, they probably wouldn't be doing anything, because it's West Papua. The Western Australians managed to launch an invasion, or naval invasion, of this country, landing over here in the west, and managing to fully take over the remainder of the nation, allowing for Papua New Guinea forces to centralize control and start to head down towards New South Wales and to help out on this front line. Although these guys will start to lose a lot of territory in the desert especially, but also kind of in the north. And yeah, it's not great what's happening in Australia, but it's definitely happening. I'm also kind of tired. It's not actually that late though. It's kind of fine. Anyway, I'm just talking really fast. Over here to Texas. Texas is absolutely blitzing through America. They managed to take more major cities, and America just really can't stop these guys. And in fact, they're doing so well, they managed to convince the Lilac country over here in probably Minnesota. Oh yeah, Minnesota. Yeah, Minnesota. Thanks, Biden. Anyway, they started to do their invasion. Their military is fairly destroyed. Nuclear bombs. Do they have any? No. Yeah, they all got taken. They used them all. But they managed to take a few American major cities, and it's going to cause a huge fallback of forces in the American north as they lose control of this entire peninsula, and a joint New England and Michigan invasion allows for the capturing of all this American north. Of course, some of that was the fact that the Americans just gave up on that territory, and they started to push back more against New England territory up here, and also against the Texan invasion in the south. but they're fighting a defensive war on all front lines, which really sucks. They're not invading anyone anywhere, so that's pretty annoying. But oh well, America will be fine, probably. We see the joining of another country into the war. At this point, it just seems like everyone's getting involved. But this time it's Ghana, which is going to definitely help the Moroccans to invade further into the Andalusian country, because Ghana has a pretty good military for their size and location. Generally, the African countries aren't super strong, but this guy has nothing going on. But Ghana's doing pretty well, so well done Ghana, I guess. Over here in Germany, more bad things are happening, as the eastern invasion into their country is proving to be pretty successful, but they are managing to retain control over the capital city, and with some help from the Norwegians, they managed to move back in control of the north. So, good job, Germany, I guess. And Norway. More Norway there. Anyway, we're going to see a pretty major country join the war, and it's going to be finally the Persian country who joins the war, and they're going to do something they've really wanted to do for a very long time. Wait a second. Oh wait. Oh yeah. I remember why. Yeah, I'm just kind of stupid. Nuclear bombs. You literally just saw me go on this layer. That's because they're gonna use their nukes. They're only gonna use 2 of them because they got given 6 by the Russians, and they're gonna use 2 on their enemies over here. So they drop 1 nuclear bomb on this city, and then 1 just on the capital of the American colony, or Mesopotamian occupation zone. Yes. And that's kind of weird. But from here, what they do is they begin their invasion over into this territory. The Koreans were finally managing to push back against the Ganjiatic country, and they're managing to retake all of their lost land to this nation, kind of effectively returning the front lines back to how they were before, until the Persians arrived, which means they're able to retake a lot of the major cities, including this nuked one, and they completely obliterate the Korean military occupation here in this territory. And the Mesopotamian front is going to start to close up as we see another country think about joining, but they won't join yet. If ever, right? Persia. The Franco Union is going to kind of hold their positions, I suppose. They have the wealthiest portion of the Mesopotamian Empire because they're the wealthiest country here. But they fall back from their Italian lines except for around this city, which they want to protect. And yeah, the fight for Mesopotamia begins. Anyway, back over here to Asia, we're going to see some more weird stuff happen, which is the joining of the Lilac and the Pink countries into the war for China. So China has become a huge battlefield of interests and people fighting for it, which is what a battlefield is. But the Koreans are doing a pretty good job at moving through the southern territory. The Purple Nation is going to lose a little more land, but something kind of crazy happens, which is something the world did not expect, as the Purple, the Orange, and the Yellow countries all completely unite to form one great Chinese country. However, it's just the 3 countries put together, so it's not that great, but it's the beginnings of something great. As a new Chinese union is on the rise, and the Koreans are pushed back by a huge wave of nationalism that approaches from China. So this the Purple country manages to retake a load of the lost land from all these countries, and effectively it's one country now. So we're actually going to use this as the front line. Something like this. They managed to cut across to the red country over here, but they're also fighting an active front line against the pink country, as many of the coastal, wealthier Chinese countries seem to be interested in getting involved in World War III. So yeah, the Koreans are fighting on a weird front line. The red team has not joined yet, because the red team, they don't do a whole lot. They're just chilling there. The Koreans realize something needs to be done about China before it gets really, really out of hand, because they're already fighting like half of the countries in this entire subcontinent. I don't know what is China, and the great country, seeing this nationalism wave, will be able to push back a bit more against their invaders. The blue country, however, will not be able to push back against their invaders because they're not that strong. So they're pushed back by this. The Hoover country is going to join, and this is a terrible, terrible plan by the Hoover country. I mean this one, of course. This is weird crash one. Because Indo-Chinese forces are going to now move into its nation, of course, as they do in an invasion, and they take over the 3 major cities down here in the south, and they just absolutely eradicate that nation. However, it means the Indo-Chinese forces have to be diverted away from the Bengali front line, which is where they're kind of needed, and the Indo-Chinese managed to push back against that. The Tibetans are also finally nearing some of their lost major cities, and the Indo-Chinese are really struggling under the amount of pressure they're facing. They are no longer sending naval vessels to help out in Western Australia, and Western Australians are going to succeed a lot more in pushing back the eastern country. The nuclear bombs they dropped definitely helped, and although Eastern Australia dropped the same amount of nukes, it's still pretty bad. So what they're going to do to kind of make the people in their country feel a bit better is drop another nuclear bomb onto Australia. What they really want to focus on is the southern front line, because if it gets too out of hand, they could lose their capital city in Perth. So they're just going to drop another nuke, just as you do. So they'll send them down to 4. Alright, heading back over to China, then we finally see the red country actually decide to do something, and that is join, let's join the great new kind of North Chinese Union. So goodbye to their capital city. The capital of this country is currently occupied, so I guess they're using probably this one over here in the west of the country. But something you should know is they just have a lot of nuclear bombs all scattered around the country, and they're going to use those on the Koreans because they don't care enough about human rights. Let me count. They're just going to get completely rid of the stockpile of this country. So, oh wait, I forgot how colors work. Sorry guys. Oh yeah, I've only been doing this for like 105 episodes. They get rid of the complete nuclear stockpile of that orange country down there, or what was the orange country, as they launch their own nuclear bombs into the Korean state, dropping 1, 2, 3, and 4, or 3, just 3. Yeah, so Korea is going to take that badly as they drop a nuclear bomb onto their occupied territory, before dropping 1 on this city, 1 on this city, 1 on this city. That's already 4, 5, and then 6. Which means the Koreans are down to 25 nuclear bombs. However, they're not the only country. I had to redo it because I did the wrong layer, by the way. They aren't the only country to use their nuclear bombs in this sort of context, as the Indo-Chinese realize they need to do loads of stuff. So they start to nuke Bengali major cities, nuking those 2. They drop 1 on your capital, and also just nuke 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and yeah, that's probably good. Right, so they're also down to 19 now. Anyway, the war's getting pretty bad. The Hoover country is going to decide to use their own nuclear bomb. Also, they have only 1, but every little helps. So, thanks, man. They drop 1 right over here. Probably they drop it on the capital. These nukes are kind of better by this point, so hooray. I mean, those from the 1990s, so maybe not as good as the newer ones, but still basically there. Anyway, back over to Europe then. So the war over here in Europe is changing quite a lot because of new front lines and new joinings of countries. The Italians are having a huge resurgence against the Franco Union as they're getting pushed back by a ton of countries, and the capital of the Italian state is retaken by the Italians, obviously. That makes a lot of sense. Over here in eastern Germany, they are going to retake some of their territory, including their capital city, and Norway is also starting to fail. However, one country has been lying in wait, and it's not a super strong country, it's not a super important country, but it is one who did some stuff in the last episode. It's the Vancouver Nation. Under the banner of the Alaskans, they're going to be, well, not under the banner of the Alaskans, but I'm just going to use the Alaskan color. They're going to start an invasion of Korea up here across the Bering Strait. So, this is a really random one. But Alaskan forces move across the border, retaking a ton of this territory, or just taking it. There's no one here, so there's nothing to stop them, and the Alaskans make excellent headway into this land. From here, the Alaskans continue moving across, taking over the southern territory, and it's more the Vancouver military, because Vancouver destroyed the Alaskan military in their war. The Koreans were not expecting the Vancouver country to invade around eastern Kamchatka, because why would they be? And there were basically no defenses set up for a major invasion into this territory, and it all capitulated very quickly, as they just used like planes and stuff to fly across, absolutely obliterating what is going on in this territory. So goodbye to the Russian Far East. We can head over to the Middle East now, where we see another new front line kind of open up, but the Hejaz alliance of Hejaz, South Sinai, and the surrounding Green country will all be joining the war, and this is going to effectively complete the fighting over here in the Middle East, as Italian occupied people, well, mostly those guys, move up and help to defeat the Mesopotamian area. So Persia has destroyed Mesopotamia, Hijaz has destroyed Mesopotamia. Everything is going great for those guys. It's all exactly how they wanted it. So that's pretty fun. And now they can kind of just send their forces over to Italy. But now there's all the people of Persia, which you didn't know, Iran is a fairly populated country in real life. The people of Hijaz and the people of Italy are all fighting on one front line now, which is kind of crazy. The Italians, just to further this fact, they're going to use a load of nuclear bombs. So that's kind of controversial, man. You probably shouldn't drop 3 nuclear. I sometimes like, why does this not work? It's just because I'm incompetent. Kind of controversial to drop some nuclear bombs, but they do it. Dropping 1, 2, 3, and 4 nuclear. Oh, just 3. But not drop that central one. Yeah, there you go. 3 nuclear bombs on the Franco soil. The Franco Union is not going to take this well, obviously. They're going to drop 5 nukes of their own. They already lost 3 because of the American nukes on their enemies. So, yeah, that kind of sucks for them. Anyway, yes, let's go on the right layer, shall we? Why do they not have... I swear. Who cares? Anyway, Italy getting nuked once again, and they're just absolutely getting destroyed by these guys. But that's pretty fun. Let's keep nukes dropped on there. The Polish are going to drop a nuclear bomb on the German capital. That's something they've wanted to do for a while because, I don't know, man, they're just mean. Also, Poland just hates the Germans for all the things the Germans have done to them in the past. But this is going to completely ruin German morale. And also the Norwegians are kind of like, are we going to get nuked? We've got 9 nukes because the Franco Union gave us 2, but just to keep. So that was nice. It wasn't like an occupation thing, because they're like, we're equal partners, so you can actually just have my 2 nukes. But yeah, an invasion starts into the German state. Because Germany is weak and obliterated by nukes, it's just giving everyone flashbacks. Because Germany in World War III was one of the countries who was the most nuked, and they've just finally recovered from that, but also they've recovered in that they've lost a load of stuff, which means they have less territory. They could have nukes. Anyway, over here in Morocco, they're doing a pretty good job at moving up into the Andalusian territory. They have taken over all 3 of the Andalusian nukes, which means that their nuclear stockpile is up to 9 nuclear bombs. The Franco Union is helping to occupy their territory, but of course, to occupy that, they're going to have to move troops from Italy, and they're also getting a lot less troops from around the world. It's kind of hard to quantify, but these guys are getting troops from all over in their different allies like Eastern Europe and the Middle East, whilst the Franco Union is without troops from America, or Australia, or Korea, or East Asia. They're kind of fighting this war on their own, except for the ally in Norway, although Norway's not even doing a whole lot anymore. The Texans are going to take over this stuff, whilst the New England country is going to move down and retake all of this stuff, getting very close to the American capital, as America's kind of like, why the hell am I even fighting this war? I'm just fighting a war against 2 countries who don't like me. Or 3, but you're not that important, really. Sorry, Minnesota. Anyway, back over here to China, a front line which is very important at this point. We carry on with Alaska, I guess, but the Alaskans are kind of just doing this, and the Koreans aren't doing anything about it, because what are they meant to do? It's Arctic up there. Anyway, yeah, China has seen some interesting stuff occur with you joining the alliance, and a couple more countries joining the war, like the blue country up here, which then proceeds to join the Chinese Union. And then with all these new troops and stuff, the Koreans start to lose in some of these southern front lines, and the capital is China is retaken. We also need to just have this be one front line. That's pretty good. The Taiwanese are starting to rebel away, and although the Indo-Chinese country has almost completely capitulated this country, we're going to see a load more Chinese countries join, like the dark red one, the red one, this one's already involved, and the yellow one, and finally the sort of light tealish one gets involved, meaning that all of the Chinese states are now completely involved in this war. We see the green country have a huge help from the countries helping it, from the Tibetan country, and Bengal is doing even more great work in pushing back against the Indo-Chinese, as they now only occupy 1 Bengali city. Down here in the south, we can see 2 more countries join, including the Java country over here, as they move into the southern Sumatran territory to free, not really their brothers, because this country is pretty Swedish, or not Swedish, Norwegian. They just have the Swedish colony currency, but they're South Asian brothers, kind of. But they're pushed back by Indo-Chinese forces, but it just shows as their first invasion how successful they are because of how few Indo-Chinese troops there are. The Borneo country also gets involved, sending their troops across over here into Sumatra, into this very important territory until, just like um, with Java, they push back. Over here in Western Australia, they are continuing to have successes in this territory. With a successful Papua New Guinea naval invasion up here in the north, they will manage to connect up like a naval invasion from Papua New Guinea. We've got to remember this country has lots of technology from the old Chinese country, which still kind of works in this time period. It's like a boat. A boat is still going to get you to the other side of a channel. That's how a boat works. And the New South Wales country is losing a lot of morale as the Franco ideology seems to be failing. The people here love this ideology, but it's just not doing that much for them at this point, and they're kind of scared. So they could exit the war, but the first country who will exit the war is going to be America. As the Americans lose their capital city over to New England forces, they're like, nah, I don't want to lose my nukes too, or all of my stuff. I'm leaving the alliance. So that is a huge blow to the Franco Union. But what will be an even bigger blow is the complete destruction of whatever the Andalusia. Sorry, I'm having a Minnesota Joe Biden moment where I can't remember the names of stuff. But yeah, they push up into this Catalonian territory, and at this point, the Franco Union is basically falling apart. The Germans have ended their occupation of Italy, and now Italian troops are starting to move up here into southern Germany, along with all the rest of the blue team troops over here in this country. The French and the Norwegians are like, what the hell? Oh, the Frankos and the Norwegians. And in fact, this entire area of German occupation will completely, or German territory will fall apart, leaving just the Franco Union and Norway alone in Europe to fight against the rest of this alliance. There's not really anyone they can turn to. Overseas, the Koreans and the Indo-Chinese are failing to combat the forces of their enemies, and we're seeing even greater unions within the Green country. This random grayish country joins the Hoover-looking country. They join. Finally, the other two coastal countries will join. So both you are in, and you lose your capital city. And now there's just this weird central group of countries and a load of random colours, which you need to sort out. The Indo-Chinese make a desperate move against the Tibetans, trying to maybe force them out of this war. But Tibet's going to do something fun. And instead, the fun thing, it do drop 2 nuclear bombs on the Indo-Chinese territory, which leads Indo-China to drop 2 nuclear bombs of their own on Tibetan territory, which is actually 1 there. And then they just drop another 4, 5, and 6, all of it in these territories. Okay, so Indo-China is now down to only 13 nuclear bombs. Western Australia is now diverting forces away from their invasion of New South Wales, who's kind of just starting to lose hope in this war, which is started very, very far away, and they're not really that involved in, and it leads to a major invasion into Sumatra, which causes the Indo-Chinese to almost lose all of the island, apart from the really important bits down there. The Borneo country is, of course, also helping out, and finally, we've seen the rest of the Chinese countries get involved in this major Chinese union to bring back the old Chinese union. Kind of scary stuff, seeing as the old Chinese country, they nuked a couple people, they caused like tens of millions of deaths, and they weren't super popular, but hey, this whole thing back together again is going to cause the deaths of more tens of millions of people, because it has a load of nuclear bombs, and secured a majority of its territory now. They push back against the Indo-Chinese, and already Just United is doing an excellent job at pushing back. They kind of had some plans, and the countries have been all working together before this, like naval and military drills, so they kind of knew how to work together. The Tibetans just suffered a major invasion from the Indo-Chinese, but at this point, it's not too tricky for them to just push this invasion back. And finally, the Bengali country is even going to start their own invasion over here in Myanmar to retake some of their own territory. The Japanese islands are now rebelling away from the Koreans, which really sucks for them. We see the Andaman Islands taken by a Gangetic naval invasion, but it's more in the Bengali country because they have a lot of ethnic claim to that territory. The island of Sumatra is completely taken, but the Indo-Chinese hope to hold back their enemies just at the Malacca Strait, so maybe they'll be successful there, but probably not. New South Wales country, they're going to just decide to leave the war after Western Australia proves that they are the best Australia, apparently. I like Pink Australia more, but yeah, in this world, they're the best Australia. Alright, bye-bye. So they leave the war, and now all those troops are going up to fight against the Koreans. Up here in the north, we see random other stupid stuff happen. as the Vancouver country manages to land over here in northern Japan, causing a major Japanese revolt as they take over the entire island, moving over here into Sakhalin and taking over this territory. And it really shows the Korean weakness at this point. The new Chinese Union is going to start to invade into Korean territory now, taking over that peninsula and moving across the border into more Korean lands, which are kind of historic Chinese lands, so they kind of definitely want those areas back. Anyway, there's a load of scattered nuclear bombs all across this country, so why not drop them on Korea? 5 more nuclear bombs are to be dropped. Okay, are to be dropped on Korean major cities. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And it's just a lot of the countries with much smaller stockpiles giving up their nukes. So thanks, dude. We see 1, 1, and then the southern country who got invaded a lot, deciding, you know what, I'm actually really wanting to obliterate these people because they're really irritating me. They also finally make a naval invasion into the island Taiwan, and from here they move up into the Taiwanese occupied islands and also towards Okinawa and the southern Korean island territories in Japan, like Kyushu. As I said before, Japanese island revolts. I don't remember what country, or like, oh, it's part of this color, so let's just do a mix of that. In the north, you see the blue country revolt, whilst in the south, the red Japanese country is going to revolt. Looks something like that. And Korea is now being pushed from Japan. Down here in Indochina, they're entirely pushed out of Chinese territory. And yeah, it's a very rapid ending to this war. The Tibetans are going to manage to push out the Indo-Chinese completely from their territory, and Bengal will do much of the same, with mostly Gangetic help. They also managed to push into Indo-Chinese territory on their own now, and unfortunately it turns out that they managed to get across the Malacca Strait as these forces move up into Indo-Chinese territory. Over in Italy, what they managed to do is push the Franco Union entirely out of their own lands, and from here, they begin an invasion up into the Danish areas of Norway, pushing up the Jutland or Jutland Peninsula and taking over all these islands, including Bornholm. Norway is pushed out of continental Europe, and Italy, actually they have a colour down here, don't they? Can start their invasion into Franco territory, moving across the southern French area and towards the nation of Morocco, who they didn't know would help them like this, but apparently now has, and they've got apparently good relations, so that's pretty fortunate. Moroccan troops continue to move through the southern areas of this country, taking over what would be Aquitaine as they move towards the very historic Franco territories. Any more nukes going to be dropped? No, because at this point in the war, you don't really need nukes to just obliterate these people. They're not having a good time. Back over here to Korea, the new Chinese Union, as you can see, it looks very cool, is doing an excellent job of invading into Western Korea as they finally take over the capital city. Maybe I shouldn't use a brush this big, but oh well, it kind of just shows how fast they're moving. It's like in World War II when they're obliterating Germany, and the Koreans are knocked off from their northern territory, a bit like when they were invaded by China in episode 70, and they're pushed back to South Korea, a bit like in the Korean Civil War, real life. Anyway, what am I saying? China continues to move in against Indo-Chinese territory, taking over some islands over here, and they move into southern Chinese territory, liberating the southern Chinese people. And Indochina at this point is basically not functioning as a country anymore. They have had the aristocracy overthrow the Francoist government, which is made up of a lot of aristocrats anyway, but the other aristocrats did it. But then the aristocrats got overthrown by democratic people, and at this point, China just fully takes over the entire thing. And what the hell is going on anymore? Korea's lost their capital city, and the Chinese managed to take over the southern parts of the Korean country, although they can't really take all the credit, because, to be honest, you ought to probably, like, the Gangetic country didn't have any fronts to fight on, but they did, like, a lot of the work towards the end of that war. So now we're down to our final two countries, the Franco Union, unless I'm forgetting someone, which I probably am, the Franco Union and Norway. Franco forces are completely obliterated by the Italian invasion through their central territory. We see rebellions pop up in the Netherlands, Britain, and France. The capital is finally taken in Brittany, and British forces are pushed out of the country. Landings are made all across the Norwegian coast in Scania, Gothenburg, eastern Sweden, Stockholm, Gotland, and just southern areas all throughout Norway. As they push towards the capital city, they take over the islands. At this point, Norway and Britain, some of the oldest allies in the entire world, are fighting up against such a huge European coalition. Italy should not be occupying this much territory in Western Europe. I really hope I haven't forgotten anything in this war, but I don't think I have. And yeah, they offered to invade Britain. They're like, we're going to invade your country unless you give up at this point. And Norway and Britain will meet together in the Orkney Islands, or Shetland Islands, I mean, and they will finally agree to sign peace to maybe not such a big coalition as the one from World War III. That was a much larger war than this one, which only lasted for 2 episodes. However, the peace treaty is still going to change a lot in the world, and the next era is going to be wildly affected by the events of this one, especially due to the nuclear bombs. They are going to have a major effect on the world going forward. So yeah, thanks for watching. I had a nice time recording this, got a lot of fun, and yeah, I'll see you again next time in the peace treaty episodes. Have a nice rest of your day. Goodbye.